Every punk in this town is scared stiff. They say he can't be killed. They say he drinks blood.
Is there a 6-foot bat in Gotham City?
Vicky Vale.
Bruce Wayne.
And what do you do for a living?
He's a tired old man. Can't run this city without me. Your luck is about to change. Winged freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me. He's out there right now. And I've got to go to work. My life is really complex.
I have given a name to my pain.
I'm Batman.
Welcome to Movie Humpers. My name is Bob Sham.
I'm Angela.
And any sounds you may hear are probably dogs. Mm-hmm. So if you're hearing anything weird, there's a toilet running in the background. I don't know how clear that will be. Probably not very.
Probably can't hear it.
This month is Adolescent Power Fantasy Month, and last week we did Superman.
Yes.
Now, what is the other superhero other than Superman that might pop into your mind? The Batman.
Yes.
Batman. Yeah, we talked about Richard Donner's Superman last week. We're talking about Tim Burton Batman this week.
This is my favorite Batman.
And yeah, I like this Bruce Wayne in particular, like the Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne. I think he actually does a really great kind of like timid. Sometimes it's timid, but like Bruce Wayne seems kind of he's charming, but kind of also seems a little confused a lot too.
Yeah.
But yeah. Batman, 1989, directed by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, who's chewing up every fucking scene.
Yes.
I mean, discussions of this movie, I don't want to go too in the weeds with it.
Fair.
Because this movie has been well tread in terms of discussion. But I know we're getting further and further away from when this movie came out. We got adults that were born well after this movie came out. I just kind of want to convey, if they don't happen to know, that when this movie came out, it was a phenomenon.
It was such a big deal.
Did you manage to go to the theaters to watch this?
Not this one.
Me either. I really wanted to, and I'm not sure how I didn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was a country kid living with his grandma.
What year was this?
89.
Yeah, I was only 9. I don't think my parents would have taken me to it.
Yeah, I think I maybe was in the same. It may have just been a matter of my grandma not wanting to go sit in the movie.
That's true. We
Batman.
did watch it a ton of times once we could. We owned it. We had the VHS.
When the VHS came out, that was a very hot commodity as well. And once we had the VHS, we also rented it from the video store. I probably rented this like 10 times.
Well, my dad had that super cool setup where you would rent stuff once and then we had 2 VCRs, so we would record like 3 movies from the rental store onto one like at home VHS, but we actually had the box, like the Batman VHS that was like all black with just the Batman symbol on the front, because this one was so important to my dad. Also fucking loved this movie that he like actually bought it. Like we didn't really have the money to go to the theater a lot.
Sure.
Buy a lot of shit.
I think
around it.
I think honestly it was around this time where like money was a little tight where we were too. I think it seemed like looking back that money was kind of tight by the end of the 80s, right?
Into
like
the 90s for us.
Like
yeah.
Yeah, so you probably were taping off like those 10-hour VHS.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
3 movies.
So it would be like Batman, Romancing the Stone, Color of Night, something like that.
We had one that, in my memory, was Teen Wolf, Encino Man, and Teen Witch, and that was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. That is the product of an 80s, early 90s childhood. Yeah. Is that when you had those VHS
and
collections.
And you just put it in on a Saturday and just let it play.
Yeah, and if they had like a marathon, I remember MTV had like an animated marathon, and I taped that. But yeah, good times back. It's kind of hard to convey that VHS life, that video store life, and what it meant. Like, imagine just a red box, but a whole store of like these boxy fucking VHS.
I know. And I know we're off a little bit, but last thing I would like to say is, I don't know if you ever did this, but I was so obsessed with it that I would sit on the floor in front of the VCR and like stop the recording when there was a commercial and start it again when the commercial was over, just to try. But then what you'd end up having was like a TV show with like a little blip of like Toys R Us, and then it would go into like the next scene. But whatever. Also, Toys R Us used to be a thing.
But But when this movie came out, people lost their ever-loving fucking minds.
It was so good.
You hear about people like, oh, I went to see Batman a dozen times when it came out. Like, this movie in the box office cleared, it was about a $50 million budget. It cleared $400 million. So for a movie, it wasn't like the biggest movie ever, but it was one of the biggest of the time.
And this was like the height of Michael Keaton, Kim Basinger. Like, she was the fucking it girl.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I think her and Alec Baldwin were married at this time.
She's also the queen of weird noises. Hopefully someday we will talk about My Stepmother is an Alien, but like, that's my like primo memory of her from a child. And she does it in this film too. Everything's like, oh, oh, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, like everything's a noise.
I expected to be a lot more dismissive of her, because I haven't seen this movie in a while.
She's great in this.
But she actually kind of gave a lot more and had a lot more presence than I expected or recalled, right? This movie was produced by John Peters and Peter Guber. And John Peters, a very infamous Hollywood figure. You remember in Licorice Pizza where they're delivering the waterbed to Barbra Streisand's house.
Barbra Streisand's boyfriend.
And Bradley Cooper is like this coked up maniac.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
He's playing John Peters in this movie.
Hilarious. Okay.
So John Peters became a producer, and he produced this fucking movie, and this fucking cashed his checks for Hollywood forever.
Absolutely. You're set on this.
I mean, if you had your name on this movie at this point, yeah, you could get a green light pretty good. Yeah. And this movie was interesting because there was kind of a balance. For the follow-up, Batman Returns, it's a lot more Tim Burton-y, but this one, it struck a tone. Like, it seemed like it was very much a studio movie, but then Tim Burton brought his sensibilities to it, and it was a lot of Gothic architecture. You know, the thinking of it like from nerdy, I'm a fan, I kind of know the history standpoint. The movie does actually strike the tone of the early days of Batman, the Detective Comics #1. When Batman first appears, he's very much, it's very simplified. When Batman first starts showing up in the comics, he actually like kills mobsters and shit. He is kind of a killer at first.
He does kill some people.
It's definitely implied that people die when he's around. It doesn't really show him. It's like explosions, like who's not dying in these explosions, right? When he's blowing up the chemical factory and shit. But
they don't show it expressly. There are actually things that I never noticed until this watching, like the fact that it just I never thought about it because I was a child, because it's done so smartly that like when Nicholson, whatever his last name is in this, before he falls into the chemicals, there's like a gunshot that does this weird thing that explodes something into his face, but it doesn't show his face all cut. It just shows like blood on his face.
Yeah.
And then later it's assumed that this like back alley doctor fixes him up, but the reason he has the grin is because that's the best he could do with the way the nerves were damaged. But I never really completely understood what was happening when I was a kid, which I think is good because that is horrifying.
Maybe. It almost seems a little...
I didn't get it when I was a kid.
It almost seemed a little over-explained because when you're a kid, you just assume, oh, the chemicals fucked him up.
That's what I thought. I just thought, oh, he went in the chemicals and it did this weird thing to his face. But then watching it now, it's like, oh no, like his face got blasted. And then they fixed him to look this way. I don't know why, but it's more gruesome when you do think about it. It's done in a way that as a child, I didn't think about it.
So this movie seemed like there's a lot of Gothic architecture in it. When Batman first came out in comic books, it was very much an Art Deco time. So that it's kind of like a hybrid of that. Like it really did feel like a Batman at the very beginning when he's like everything's kind of more simplified. I don't know if Tim Burton, maybe it's just because of his natural aesthetic and what he likes, but it did seem like he kind of, whether willfully or or like subconsciously, or whether the producers who had a say in it too, because there's the iconic imagery of Batman we all know. Yeah. But it did feel like they really did go back to the Batman who's very much inspired by those pulp serials that came before him. And that's kind of what I really like about this movie. It does feel like it's a very ground floor, straightforward, back in the day kind of Batman, where long before the full on cast of rogues, the endless sidekicks of Batgirl and Robin and shit. Yeah. And this is very much just right at its core. And I think that's what really makes this movie work and how this movie resonates, because when you go too deep in Batman lore, and I think it is a problem when Catwoman starts showing up and shit and all this, that everything feels a little more cluttered. Yes. But I think what's nice about this is that it doesn't feel cluttered. And I think what people grabbed onto it was how the very simplistic dynamic. You got the weirdo Batman and the awkward Bruce Wayne. You got the cute photojournalist, and then you got Jack fucking Nicholson, who he's definitely one of the more infamous people to play Joker, and that's comparing him to Cesar Romero and fucking Heath Ledger. He still kind of like stands out there. And I noticed that Jack he almost is like Cesar Romero, but more homicidal, you know?
Yeah, he manages to be incredibly frightening and funny and silly at the same time. One of the things that was most enjoyable for me rewatching this is just how silly it was able to be, because now I feel like these superhero movies take themselves way too seriously. Yes. Also visually, you can tell it's a soundstage, and there is even a difference between like this first one and the next one. Like you said, I know the next one's more Tim Burton, but this one visually, the way that it looked, at one point they were in an alley and it truly looked like it could have been a scene from Little Shop of Horrors. Like, it's just so very like old, what you would imagine like old dirty New York. The reason I think it worked and I actually really loved it is that it really just looked like a comic book come to life. It didn't look completely real. Yeah. And I actually loved that even more about it. Because this is not a real place. It's kind of a place out of time. Like, these people dress like they're from like 40s newsmen. You know? That's kind of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Like, it seems like it's just not so far removed. And I know that's like, well, they're comic book characters, but it's actually kind of, they're such different mediums. It's not always easy. Yeah. Now we're at this age where we get like 3 of these comic book movies a year, but back then, for every like 5 that they tried to do, maybe 1 was like didn't look completely fucking awful,
and it was a huge deal.
Yeah, like talking about Superman, that was 1978, and honestly, as far as movie, like maybe the cameras are a little nicer, but like as far as like actual effects, it's not that different from the 1978 Superman era. Yeah. And there's even some parts where we pan out and we see like an overhead shot and Batman's walking into a building, and you can tell that little part is like animated.
Yeah, there was a part on the roof that totally looks like a cartoon.
There's these moments where it becomes like a Max Fleischer cartoon for a brief second. And it's very noticeable, but it's also kind of charming too. Like, I don't mind it.
Absolutely. But again, not something I picked up on when I was a kid, and just makes it like cool now to revisit these little things that you didn't notice.
So mob boss Jack Napier works for this guy. I forget his name, but it is played by Jack Palance. And he's screwing his wife, and And so Jack Palance sets him up to go take care of some papers because he's got his name all over some corrupt shit. Go and clean out this place. Napier, who's pretty much off his rocker to begin with, goes in and he realizes it's already been cleaned out and they've been set up. And this corrupt cop comes in, and Commissioner Gordon comes into, when he hears about the corrupt cop going in, he knows something's going on. Gotham's a real shit show, right?
Oh, yeah, everybody's corrupt.
It always has been. Batman, are you ever really going to make a difference in this city? Truly. And
he's doing the best he can.
So Batman shows up as well. Also, one thing that's fun is that the costume, he couldn't turn his head. So Michael Keaton had to just kind of like be like this. And Jack Napier ends up getting his ass dropped in some chemicals. Yeah. And everyone thinks he's dead until this giggling fucking maniac shows up. And there's that iconic scene where he's in the back alley, like he said, with the surgeon. You can tell because it says surgeon. There's a sign that says surgeon.
Surgery.
And that's the iconic scene where he's like, give me the mirror.
Mirror. Mirror!
You understand that the nerves were completely severed, Mr. Napier. You see what I have to work with here.
You've seen that parodied so many times, and then it sounds like he's crying, and then he starts laughing.
Oh, it's so good.
And it's really fucking cool when he starts to kind of come out, and he's not in the white Joker makeup, but it's implied that his skin changed. So he'll colors his skin sometimes to look more like a regular, and
like it was before.
Yeah, and they play it like they'll have Jack Nicholson, like when he wants to take off his regular skin makeup, they'll have him like wipe his face with a rag, but there's paint on the rag.
That's so good.
So when he's wiping his face, it looks like he's wiping off his skin to reveal like that his skin is actually white underneath. It's just like this cool little trick that is really neat. And they do that a couple of times. There's another point where he's got the regular skin tone on, and Vicky Vale throws water in his face,
and
he's like starts to scream like. The white that's supposed to be underneath, just like a simple trick that honestly we could probably do here at home if we set it up. But it's just like that little touch that's like really nice. We can't overstate how good Jack Nicholson is in this movie. One of my favorite scenes though, and it's kind of what defines like the Bruce Wayne so good, is when Vicky Vale is coming to eat dinner at his house. And they're sitting at this stupid long table. Yeah. And what's funny is that Bruce Wayne is like in this mansion. We know the origins of Batman, and everything is just this like intense Gothic architecture. Mm-hmm. But Bruce Wayne like feels very awkward in his own house. Yeah. Like she's sort of trying to make a joke at one point, and she yells like, "Pass the salt." And he unironically, oh, yes, gets up, grabs the salt, walks it all the way over to her, hands it, walks all the way back. Are you enjoying your dinner? And then she truly is like, do you like this? Do you like this eating in here? And he's like, honestly, I've never been in here before. And then they go and like eat in the kitchen. It's so charming. And that's he's a little bumbly. And that's when like you get more of the personable him and Alfred moments. And Alfred is like telling Bruce, like, hey, why don't you just tell her you're Batman? Why don't you like get married to this photojournalist? Because again, this is a couple because back in the day, chemistry mattered. She falls in not only with Bruce Wayne, but with Alfred, as though they all belong together. She fucked Alfred. Like, it's implied that she fucked Alfred. Alfred just watches. He goes down to the Batcave and turns on the cameras. Excellent form, Master Bruce. He's like says in a microphone.
He hits a button that like opens the drawer to remind him to grab the condom so he doesn't.
Master Bruce, perhaps she'd like her hair pulled a little, Master Bruce.
But yeah, he's like, this could be the one. Like, she could be the one that you could be honest with.
Yeah.
To the point where at one point, he straight up brings Vicky into the Batcave.
Yeah, Alfred's like, here she is.
And then he's like, okay, well, I mean, she kind of, I think, already had her suspicions. But then Alfred was just like, yes, Miss Vale, let me let you into where Mr. Wayne is. And he's just like in the Batcave.
I did like in Returns where he commented on how insane that was.
Yeah, he was like,
you just brought her in here. And so,
Alfred was in love with her. I think Alfred was like, he was trying to match her. He was like, this is the one. This is the one you need to marry.
So Gotham is wanting to do that. It's bicentennial, right? Mm-hmm. And it keeps getting like the question of will it go off or will it not? And we get a lot of like the classic bit players, but like Commissioner Gordon, we get Harvey Dent, who's played by Billy D. Williams. Mm-hmm. And apparently Billy D was hoping to eventually be Two-Face.
That's why he signed on.
But they really had to really be convincing to Tim Burton to even come back for a sequel. And there was no way he was coming back.
Harvey Dent wasn't in the sequel.
For the third. No.
Yeah.
So that's just those little touches for if you know. But they don't really play huge, tremendous roles. Like,
it's like Easter eggs more even almost.
So Joker, he's done all kinds of crazy shit. And there's genuinely creepy scenes where like he's transforming these ladies and they're getting the Joker smiles. He's putting toxins from the chemical plant in these cosmetics to where when they're combined, they will like poison you.
And you'll die.
But
you die with a smile on your face.
So he's kind of has the city like gripped under fear.
With that also, that's how he's killing people. But he's also obsessed with like grotesque body mod. Like he like acid burns his girlfriend's face and like then she wears a mask and he's like, look how gorgeous she is. Like, she's better this way.
Oh, this is very Cronenberg.
It is very Cronenberg. And at one point, he even says to Vicky, this is towards the end, but he says, like, Beauty and the Beast. And he's like, if I hear anyone call you a beast, I'll kill him. Like, but he basically is like,
his lines are fucking
beauty.
Great.
It's so good. But yeah, he's like obsessed and he wants to burn Vicky. Like, he wants to make Vicky his next, like, living art is what he calls it. So good.
Oh, so Prince does the music as well.
Oh, yeah, and we do not hear, maybe if we'd watched all of the credits, the Vicky Vale song.
Vale. I don't know if that's in the end credit, but
Vicky
but
Vale.
we do
it's not
hear
in the movie.
But we do hear Party Man.
Tell you what his name is.
Party man, rock a party like nobody can.
Yes.
Party Man, a new king in town.
This was actually hilarious. Just like tearing up the art museum.
Just
fucking destroying.
One of the most memorable scenes to me.
Art.
I definitely had that scene seared into my brain.
Yep.
But Joker, he's like, look, you guys can do the Centennial. I promise I won't terrorize it.
I'm going to throw money out on the crowd.
In fact, I'm giving away $20 million.
Yeah.
So sure enough, that's enough to convince people to come out for a parade.
Yeah.
So the balloon, and this scene's also super iconic as well. And where the balloons come out, he's on a float. And then, of course, once people are all set up and he's throwing money out, the balloons start emitting a gas. And it's
literally called Smilex. And at one point, Vicky goes, the balloons, it's Smilex!
Oh, Robert Wool is in this movie, too. He plays like a reporter.
He's very like Jimmy Olsen-y.
Yeah, kind of. Maybe a little more smart-assy.
He doesn't take the photos, but he's,
I'm pretty sure that character is only in this movie as well. And I think Vicky Vale might have, I can't remember if Vicky Vale was ever in the comics before either.
Oh, really?
But they did stick her in the comic books like after this, since this movie was so huge.
That makes sense.
So Batman shows up in his Batwing. Oh, we see his car earlier, the infamous clitoris car. And if you rub the clit of the car,
fiery asshole too.
Yeah, a fiery asshole and a big bulbous clit. And if you rub the clit, then armor surrounds the car. But the Batwing comes in the Batwing, and it looks really cool. But
didn't it feel like it took way too long for him to do anything in the Batwing? I was like, Why are you just surveilling still? Things are happening. Get your ass down on the ground.
So he goes in the Batwing.
A little showing off with the Batwing.
He grabs all the balloons with the Batwing and sets them off in the upper atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then he poses the Batwing against the moon to do the Batman silhouette.
And I cheered.
And
then that's what I do.
And then he comes out, and another very memorable part is when the Batwing's coming down, the Joker pulls out this gun from way out of his pants. It's this huge, long barrel gun, and he shoots it, and it's powerful enough to, like, fuck the plane up.
Yeah.
And it crashes.
When right before, Batman had laid out a bunch of bullets towards Joker and didn't hit him once.
Yeah.
And also, what? But that gun is great. The pants gun.
Yeah.
All the way down the pants leg.
So the plane crashes, and Joker grabs Vicky Vale. They end up going up this building, and Batman, and it's
very King Kong.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, like how the action plays out.
Yeah.
We don't see how his henchmen get up there, but it leads to the point where Batman is up top, and it's the scene where they're fighting Joker, and it's kind of funny how Joker, like, he's actually not a good fighter. Like, once it's between him and Batman, he's just getting his ass beat.
Because he's just dancing around. He has henchmen to do his work.
That scene when he puts glasses on, is like,
Yeah, you wouldn't hit a guy with glasses on, would you? Huh?
Like, that joke has been imprinted onto my brain. Like, it might be the last thing I think about when I leave this earth. Is that part in Batman. I just, as a kid, I thought that shit was so funny.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
he wouldn't hit a man with glasses.
And then his rescue helicopter he does trick them with his gadgets.
He also has the acid shooting flower on his lapel.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
And so Batman and Vicky Vale are dangling from the side of a building. That's how this ends up. And Joker grabs the ladder for the escape copter, and Batman throws his batarang against a gargoyle, and it breaks off, and it's tugging, and it's weighing Joker down, which is, I mean, Jack Nicholson kills every moment he's in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
He must have been so fucking tired after shooting, because it just really did feel like he put so much energy into that character. And he's like middle-aged at this point.
He's so good, but you know that it felt as though he understood that it's only gonna be good if you literally put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and he did, and it was so good. And it's like this, like you said, I know there's been other good Jokers, but there's
something about this one
something that is so different and so good about the way that he does it that you can't replicate.
Best Joker, of course, is Jared Leto, right? Jared Leto. No. Then Jack. Then Cesar Romero. Then Heath.
Jared Leto is the Joker's nephew who cooks meth in the basement. Like Jared Leto's Joker. That's who he is.
He has all the ha ha.
He's got face tattoos.
What's your favorite Jared Leto Joker tattoo? It's ha ha ha, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, Joker falls iconically, and that's another. It looks very animated when he's dropping down, and then his body is at the bottom, and he's got one of those laugh gimmicks in his pocket. Yeah, this movie is pretty fucking iconic.
So good.
And we'll rate this movie. We're gonna hump it.
And Vicky goes to Bruce at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and they live happily ever
Alfred
after.
picks her up, and they go.
We will hump this movie 1 through 5 times each. You'll give 1 through 5. I'll give 1 through 5. Combined for best out of 10. As far as like a complete, straightforward introduction to the Batman character, this one is pretty damn solid. I think a couple of the Nolan movies are pretty good.
Sure.
But there's just something like that, like strikes that classic tone about Batman that I really like.
This is everything I want in a movie like this.
Well, what do you give it?
I'm giving it a 4.5.
I'm going to give it, I think, Jack Nicholson.
Alone.
I was going to say 4, and then I'm thinking Jack Nicholson, I'm going to give it a 4.25. So
Awesome.
it's an 8.75.
That's top of the A's.
Yeah, we gave Superman an 8.75, and I would almost call this a character equivalent to that in terms of pure enjoyability.
Yep.
Would you?
Goodness. I guess I'd put this one above Superman.
See, for me...
But I don't know, because I feel like they're next to each other.
I think if I had to pick one, I think Superman is just a lot more pure joy in Superman.
You know, yes.
But there is like weird plot points that are strange in Superman, and I won't say that's as much of a problem in Batman. So yeah, we'll give the edge to Batman.
But truly, they could just be next to each other on the list, and it would be accurate.
So check it out, folks. They're back to back. Two of the best superhero movies
of all time
that ever were. Batman and Superman neck and neck. You could practically just say they're tied.
Like you could say Batman v Superman.
Dawn of Justice. That's the only movie that will be an S tier. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God. I was like,
fucking
what?
awful.
No.
All right. So there you go. Batman 89. Back in our day, it was like discussed so much. It was unreal. So what do you think about it now? If you're younger than us and weren't around when this came out and you watched it now, what'd you think about it?
Yeah, what did you think about it?
What did you think about it? Did you like it? And yeah, hit us a like and subscribe on our videos for more discussions like this, more adolescent power fantasy this week. Comment on your thoughts on Batman 89. If you remember it fondly, tell us about it. If you were new to it, what did you think about it? So, yeah. And
death to all traitors.
Death to all traitors.